Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Powers, Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2. And this is a 2015 series, and immediately the quick comparison that I would probably make this to, if anyone was to go on and see the Netflix movie Project Power with Jamie Foxx, almost same similar kind of story and what have you. If you've never seen Project Power with Jamie Foxx, that actually is a really good film. I would go on and tell people to check it out. So what is Powers about? So Powers is of course a story about a superhero named Diamond who is to lose all of his superpowers because of a guy named Wolf. And so Diamond had gone on to leave the Diamond persona behind to then become just Christian Walker and enroll in the Powers Division in the LAPD, where, of course, he is to be a detective. The real reason why he is to go on and become a detective is because he just has all this knowledge that is accumulated over time, like being very familiar with a number of the superheroes in this story, and is to also be kind of really familiar with how to go on and take down a villain at some point, because when Walker was Diamond, he would have to go on and take a numerous number of villainous characters down with superpowers. So we go on in this story, and Walker is to meet some old friends of his at some point. They may not all be alive, but Walker is to have to go on and eventually meet with a girl named Callista, who is to be in desperation of wanting to have her powers and is trying to go through any ways of means to try and get them. And along the way, Walker is to be teamed up with a brand new partner called Dina Pilgrim, but most of the time I think she's just called Pilgrim, and is to have Walker just like having this just desperation of wanting his powers back. Like it's a phantom limb, like he explains it, and like every once in a while he just like can feel his powers being there, but has to figure out and has to realize that they're never coming back, or that they may come back but very briefly. So like kind of giving people hope for this story. So where can you go on and watch this series? What grade will I give this show? So right out of the gate, I just feel like this show, like, it's so much fun. I like it. Like, I would easily just say that this is this is a great show easily. And like a lot of people could kind of feel differently about it. A lot of people can probably compare this a little bit to Boys, but like I don't think that this show is as hard hitting as The Boys is. But it's like somewhere close there. We go and have them talk about BJs and stuff like that in the show. So we kind of get there. We kind of get there in a lot of ways. But anyways, so yeah. So where can you go on and watch this show? Currently, it's available. You can watch both seasons on Amazon. If you want to go and buy the whole season for $14.99 right now, you can go ahead and do that if you have the available money. I'm also going to recommend a number of apps that I've used through a certain plethora of time. I don't know how convenient or inconvenient these apps are anymore because it's been a while since I've gone on and kind of Googled and whatever and done all these things to eventually see if these things still exist. But if anything, like I would just recommend eventually somebody going on to a phone app and just searching the word movie apps and just kind of see what you kind of eventually get. And hopefully you'll go on and get some bootleg app of yourself. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, well, like, I don't need to, like, I don't need this anymore. I don't need that anymore, so on and so forth. So, the first thing that I'm going to go and do is tell you to go on a Google search. You can search the word letter C movies app. Hopefully, you can there, in fact, find an app that you can download and, be able to see whatever you like. Movies that are currently on possible premium access right now. There's sometimes you can even see theater movies that are just kind of like poorly cameraed in, and you'll be able to see the film for absolutely free. Stuff that you would normally go on and see in only specific apps like Disney Plus or HBO Max, whichever. The next app that I'll recommend to you, Fox HD movies. Regardless of what I say next, kind of search for that word, because eventually you'll hopefully find an app that is to say Fox HD movies app. But the logo will be something different. The logo will go on and say play 1080p HD movies. So very long stretch of an app, but at the end of the day, hopefully you can say that you can see powers for absolutely free. There is a third app that I would normally recommend, but in the end, that app only has season 2 of Powers. So, like, normally that's an app that I've kind of would recommend for certain people, but for some odd reason, it only has a second season, so for free. So, yeah, sadly enough. So do whatever you like, because at the end of the day, I think it's that time to just say that it is about that time to just go into spoilers. And let's go into that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into spoilers. I went very vague on the actual description and teeing it up with this show. I think I'm just gonna stick the landing on that one, and just say that if you have not gone out of your way to see the show, I would recommend you doing so. I would, definitely say for you to figure out a way to watch this. Maybe you can go on and buy the seasons on Amazon for pretty cheap. Maybe you can, I'm sure there's disc copies there, and maybe you can find a cheaper variation of this show than by instead of renting it on Amazon, you can find a cheap copy of this for dirt cheap. Who knows? So, because I have both the seasons on a disc somewhere, and so but I didn't go that route. So, with that said, let's just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we can just spoil this show. So, the pilot episode. The very beginning of this is to just kind of showcase the Power Division, LAPD. So this, of course, is Midtown Central. I think is where the location of this precinct is. So we have both Walker and Brian Stockley, who are bringing in a superpowered villain called Iron Impact, and while they're both going on and bringing this guy in, they're kind of just consistently tranquilizing this guy, because he is kind of like a juggernaut kind of character. Kind of don't get him going, or his momentum will make him unstoppable. So we have a bunch of different kind of characters within this precinct, and so we have Zerotron X, some kind of goofy looking character that we'll kind of see much more in episode 2. And so We have Cutter that comes in to this episode, wanting to, of course, talk to Stockley, and mentioned that that I think his kid had called him. And so we had Walker, who was to try and interrogate Zerotron X, while Stockley was trying to put Iron Impact into this cell. And come to find out, since Stockley was doing this alone and he had dropped his phone, all of a sudden Iron Impact had taken advantage of this because he was not fully drugged. And Iron Impact was to break through the cell and was to kill Walker's partner, and is to start to go on and start to hurt and mangle a bunch of these characters up. We have Walker, who is to kind of just be like, hey, what's going on here? And so Walker is put his gun and is to blast into Iron Impact, as Iron Impact is to have his powers up, and like most of these wounds aren't like killing wounds, but so then they end up kind of arresting Iron Impact and kind of taking him out. So because of Stockley, who is now dead, we have Pilgrim coming in needing another partner. So it seems that Pilgrim is to have a father who was to previously be tied to a bunch of the supers, and I guess him and Olympia are really strong. Olympia is basically the equivalent of Superman here, but we're not going to know this character for very long. So Pilgrim is to be Walker's brand new partner, and so now we have this extra kind of exclusive. So we have Mario Lopez, who's walking us through that that there was to, of course, be this this thing within this precinct where the Iron Impact guy was to go on and try to take down a number of police officers because he wasn't given the right drug dose. And so there was, of course, Christian Walker's partner, Stockley, who ended up getting killed in the process. Then they have to break down the history of Walker, that he used to be called Diamond, and he used to be teaming up with Retro Girl, Trip Hammer, Olympia, and so on and so forth. But Diamond was to, of course, go on and leave his superhero life behind because he was previously with a guy named Johnny Royale and Wolf had taken Diamond's powers away, and so now he enrolled in to be a detective to work with the Powers Division. And so we, of course, have Mario Lopez kind of second guessing whether or not that Walker is up to the job, is up to the snuff, this and that. So I don't know why really just Walker is even going on and watching this whole exclusive, but I guess it is what it is. I don't even know why there's a camera that is to cover any misstep that they're to take, I guess, but I guess that's just me. So Walker goes on and is to get his brand new partner, Pilgrim, and so we find out that Walker is always rude as F. We want to go on and have somebody figure out a way to soften this guy up, but he's to be a guy that always just has a stick up his butt, because Walker is just to be so tempted to want to go on and use his power. He is to go on and look outside his window and is seeing two superpowered characters fighting one another, and he's just so tempted to just want to like jump out there and go into the action, or grab his gun and his badge and just run out there. But like he just has to continue to realize he doesn't have powers anymore. So Walker is being partnered up with Pilgrim, and so they of course are to go to this case. And more before they do that, we of course had Walker, who is to collect all of Stockley's things and give this box to, of course, his family. And so Walker is to go on and talk to Crispin, who answers the door and is, of course, Brian's son. And Crispin is to just kind of hate all like the powers, and so Walker's to remind him, it's like, well, hey, I was a power once. It's like, well, yeah, but like you're a hero, that's different. He's like, it kind of feels one and the same. So Candace is to talk about, or is to talk to Walker here and mention, it's like, well, hey, like none of the stuff in that box is going to hurt my son, right? And he's like, nope. And also, we had Walker, who was to get rid of any of the girls' numbers or any of the stuff like that, because maybe at some point Stockley had some affairs possibly on Candace. So after it seems that Walker is to go on and ask Candace about like, well, hey, like you haven't been returning my calls, and like he realizes that Candace doesn't really want to talk to him, so he leaves. So Walker and Pilgrim go to their case, where they go on and find out that Olympia is dead. Because Olympia is to go to this club where we have a girl named Callisto, or Callista, who was to be given this drug called Sway by a guy named Bug. And Callista is to take this drug to Olympia, and Olympia is to take Callista to have her give Olympia this BJ so she can hope to get superpowers. And come to find out, when Callista was to leave the room to brush her teeth, she came back and Olympia was dead. Later on, we have Dr. Death, who is to mention that Olympia's heart exploded, and like that was the cause of his death. And so, like, but everybody's thinking, it's like, well, like somebody probably had it out for Olympia. It's like, well, no, like Olympia was just on a lot of drugs, and more than likely that's a possibility that he finally just died from it. He finally just croaked from it. And also, Pilgrim and Walker are within these episodes to also speak with Olympia's wife. And Olympia was to have gone on and had a very like kind of secret lifestyle, where he is to go on and get a number of favors from a number of women to just kind of like kind of keep him young, so to speak. So, because come to find out, Pilgrim is to realize from Walker that that Olympia was actually like 70 something years old. And Pilgrim's like, really? Like, he doesn't look that. And it's like, well, yeah, but like heroes age a lot slower. And then Pilgrim's like, well, why don't you like age a little bit slower? He's like, because I'm not a power anymore. But anyways, so let's go back. So Walker and Pilgrim are to make it to Olympia's place, where he was to go on and be with this girl called Callista, who is just in this bathroom just kind of sitting things out. And Pilgrim is upset with Cutter, because it's like, well, hey, you couldn't have just kind of like like taken her and put her in, like booked her or put her in an interrogation room or something like that. And Cutter didn't really think about it. So Pilgrim is trying to be nice with this girl, like, hey, let's get out of here. And like they both walk to go on and eventually have Callista in a interrogation room. So we have Johnny Royale, who is to be the producer of this drug called Sway. And so Johnny Royale is to have this guy named Simons who is to multiply himself. If anybody was to go on and possibly either know one of two characters, from the DC Comics world of things, there was this one guy called Everywhere Man, and there, of course, for Marvel characters, there was a character called Multiple Man. And so, like, really, we have Simons, who is to be, like, can possibly be any number of guys, because he is to be able to just, like, produce clones of himself multiple times over. So, like, he has that kind of power. He has, like, the multiple man power. So, Johnny is to be upset with a guy named Bugs, who was to give Callista this drug. And so Johnny is just kind of done with this guy named Bugs, and Bugs is just kind of ticked off because, like, he wants to go on and push this drug out there a lot more and be able to get more profit out of this. And that's the reason why Bug is Bug is pushing this so hard. So Royale is done with Bug, and so he goes on and is to grab his head, and then he is to teleport elsewhere and is to be holding this guy's head and nothing else. So they go on and they take this body and they kind of clean it, taking out this phone and taking out any other things. So, of course, Johnny is to get this phone and is just kind of waiting for this wannabe to call, because Bug, of course, was to mention that Olympia was with this wannabe girl, and that at some point, like, he'll probably, like, hear from her or anything like that. So, kind of paraphrasing here from what I'll remember. So now we have Callista, who's being interrogated, and so Walker is to mention at Pilgrim that there could be some normal people who are desperately wanting to blow superheroes so they can possibly get some power for a brief time. It seems that when there was one time where Walker was to get blown by some woman, she was to, like, levitate for a brief period of time, and Pilgrim's like, oh my god. So he's like, well, yeah, like, any man or any woman will probably want to go on and try to seduce a power so they can get temporarily a superpower of some kind from fluid exchanges. So we have Pilgrim at first wanting to go on and interrogate Callista. And when that ends up going horribly awry, because when Pilgrim is to talk to Callista, Callista, of course, is like, just we just have Pilgrim who's asking the wrong questions, or saying, it's like, well, hey, like, you don't have to talk, I can talk just as well for both of us. And Callista's bringing up that any number of these Power Division people, like, don't really bring down much of supervillains. And that's when Walker's like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna chime in here because like I had taken down a pretty big one. So Walker goes in there, and so Walker is to know that Callista is a wannabe. She's a fan, and so Walker is gonna like we consistently have Walker who is to always have some kind of in with all these wannabes or all these people who are to have power. It's like he just has this secret way of talking to them because he's been in their shoes, or he is to just kind of like know every aspect and how to talk to these people. So Walker is to come in there and is to mention to Callista that he had taken down Wolf. And Callista's like, no, you didn't. Like, Diamond took down Wolf. Like, the guy with the mask over his face. And Walker is like, oh, well, like, I was the guy with the mask over his face. And then Callista's like, oh, yeah. Like I remember Diamond had switched to go on and be a detective. And so, like, Callista was to finally realize that Walker was Diamond at some point. So Walker goes and is to change places with Pilgrim, and so Walker is now talking to Callista and is to bring up Retro Girl because he realizes that she's a fan wearing the same kind of similar getup in the Retro Girl shirt. So Walker is going on and mentioning exactly where Retro Girl is to kind of like where she is to kind of hang her hat for the day, and this big huge skyscraper-ish like building, her bird cage. So kind of exchanging stories and stuff like that to kind of have Callista want to go on and give up some information. So Callista at some point is to tell Walker that she can't go on and eat any of the stuff that Pilgrim was to give her because she's diabetic and she needs nuts. And so when Walker's to go off to get nuts, that seems like the Batman Michael Keaton movie. It's like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. So Callista is on her phone talking to Johnny Royale, and so Johnny Royale is asking Callista exactly where she is as she's having this phone call. And while Walker is to go on and talk to Ellie Cross and Pilgrim, all of a sudden we have Johnny Royale who is taking Callista and teleporting her away from this precinct to now put her in a place where Callista is to be used to just kind of hanging out. So, but we have Johnny talking to Callista and like trying to manipulate her to like be friends with her, and like Callista is mentioning how she just desperately wants to have powers and like she knows she has them and so on and so forth. So there's that. So we then go on into this story, and now we have Pilgrim and Walker that are, of course, trying to look for Callista, and so they try looking for her with the people that are to technically have powers or to be wannabes. And so Walker and Pilgrim are driving their way to this spot where Powers used to hang out. And Walker was to mention that this place was usually for people who wanted to go on patrol and like isn't what it is now where everybody's just kind of showing off, as we have Levitation Boy who is starting to just show off some of his powers here. And Pilgrim gets upset and she just starts running to this Levitation Boy, and Walker is to try to slow her roll and tell her, it's like, well, hey, like, don't go on and aggressively, like, go after one of these people with powers, because you never know if someone's going to have a fireball coming at you and, like, you're dead. So, like, just kind of just slow it down a little bit. So Walker is to go on and find a girl named Zora, who, if she isn't like heavily used within this season, within season 2 she'll be used a lot more, and I mean a lot more. Um, so because I don't really remember how much like she was actually used in this season, so it seems like the last 2 episodes she was, I think, used a little bit here and there. So Walker Walker is to talk with Zora, and it seems that Zora is actually a fan. And is to immediately know exactly who Walker is. She's like, oh my god, like, you're Diamond. And she has like a picture of him. And Walker is like, oh yeah, like, I didn't realize like anybody was like a fan of mine. Like, I thought everybody was like much more power, or much more like interested in kind of the more recent superheroes, like something shock, like Power Shock or something like that, whatever the goofy new title is for that one character. So you can correct me if you like, it's okay. So Walker goes on and is talking to Zora, showing this picture, and Zora is to mention to Walker that this girl was a wannabe, and so, like, eventually Zora is going to be on the lookout to try and find this girl and help Walker, and so Walker is to go on and get a phone number from Zora and vice versa, so they can go on and uh, like kind of exchange information, or find out anything. So so after that, uh, I forgot where I was. Let me take a second here. Let me pause for a second. I think this will be able to get me back on the path of things. So Walker and Pilgrim go on and are to, of course, Johnny Royale is to go to his like secret hiding place, and is to have this certain deck of cards where he is to go on and showcase all of our characters here upon the show: Retro Girl, Diamond, Wolf, and so on and so forth. And so he tears the Olympia card in half, and so, like, I guess that's like Johnny is kind of plotting away what he's going to do next. So while that's going on, Walker and Pilgrim are to go with Dr. Death. And so Dr. Death is to see that in Olympia's body, it seems that there were certain body parts that had like attacked his body. And we have also at one point where both Walker and Pilgrim are to retrieve like the headless body of Bug. And so when Walker and Pilgrim retrieve this body, it seems that Dr. Death can't go on and figure out exactly how to identify this body, because every single thing that's on it is to be somehow removed, as if Johnny had like pre-planned all of this stuff to like get rid of certain elements of this guy's body when he kind of takes his head off. So eventually all of this is to just have Walker and Pilgrim want to speak with Wolf, wanting to see if Wolf is to possibly have any information of Johnny Royale and that if he's still alive or not, because the only real convincing thing, besides like a guy who is to have a temporary portal over his head, has to be Johnny Royale. So we have Walker and Pilgrim go on to see Wolf, and Wolf, of course, is getting some medication, or he's getting something to just kind of get him much more like strong, and so really it's to be this kind of metal thing going through his eye, and he has to consistently get this. So we have Walker and Pilgrim asking Wolf these questions about Johnny Royale, if he knows anything, and so Wolf is like, Johnny was here, like again, again, and again, he was here. So so Wolf is telling Walker that Wolf will give Walker his powers back if Walker can help him escape. And Walker is to be like very tempted by that, but he is to just kind of walk away with Pilgrim as they're going to go on and drug up, of course, Wolf here. So Pilgrim and Walker walk off, and Walker is wanting to get back into the vehicle, and he's to want the keys. Walker is desperately asking for the keys, and Pilgrim's like, what was he talking about? So Walker is to mention that Wolf was to take away his powers, and he punches the glass. Like, he took my powers! And Pilgrim's like, the door was unlocked. So Walker is still upset, of course, about losing his powers because Wolf is to take from him. Even so much so that Walker is to have like Wolf kind of like talking to him in his brain, like be in his head, and is to tell him, it's like, well, hey, like, Walker, it seems like you're just powerless now, and that you're like just defenseless and you're helpless, this and that, just going on and just drilling into Walker's head that like there's nothing he can do. So cue Walker going on and dropping off Pilgrim, and Pilgrim's like, well, this is a nice night. As if this was some kind of like bizarre date, and Pilgrim ends up getting out and like saying, it's like, you know what, like, you and me could be a really good team, and Walker's like, whatever, like, get out of here. So Walker calls Zora and is to ask where she is, and if Zora had sent a number of people to look out for Callista. Come to find out, Zora is to see Callista right at this party, and Zora is to say nothing about it, just say, oh no, like, yeah, like, I haven't seen her. So Walker is to make it to this party knowing exactly where it is, and so Walker is talking to Zora, just kind of like catching up about things. All of a sudden, Levitation Boy is to mention, like, oh, you must have been here for the girl that was here, the Callista from a little bit ago. And now Walker is ticked because Zora was to lie to him, and Zora just really wanted to be with Walker and probably sleep with him. And Walker is like, get out of here, girl. Like, and so we had it to where Zora was to talk to Callista, and Zora and Callista, like, Zora was trying to figure out some way to talk to Zora to tick her off, or to talk. Zora was to talk to Callista to tick her off somehow by calling her a wannabe and talking about Walker and all of this stuff to where Callista just kind of runs off. So, and the reason why I'm saying that is Zora is to mention a Walker. It's like, well, there's a reason why you're called Walker now, because you have to walk because you can't go on and use your powers like you used to. It's like, so what? So, Walker is to go on and is to finally figure out where Callista is, and Callista is at the building of which that retro girl is. So, come to find out, Callista is on the rooftop of this building, and so Walker is to talk to Callista to talk her off this edge, because Callista is tempted to drop thinking that she can fly. And so Walker is to go on and kind of mention, it's like, well, yeah, like it is like really tempting to just kind of see if you have like powers like again, and so on and so forth, because Walker was to mention there was one time that he slipped and fell, and that's how he realized he had powers. So Callista is to finally drop, and Walker is to try to do the right thing by thinking he has powers again, by diving after her, grabbing her, and trying to hope that he can fly, but he can't, and he apologizes to her. So Retro Girl is to save both Walker and Callista, and Retro Girl is to be ticked at Walker, because it's like, well, hey, like, you know better, you son of a bitch. So we have Retro Girl who takes Callista and runs off with her to her room, and we just have Walker who is just so tempted to relive that rooftop scene, and so he ends up just kind of spending the night there and sleeping things off. So really, that's just how like the first episode ends, and then we end up getting into the second episode. So the second episode, hopefully I've covered everything within the first episode. There might have been a thing that slipped here or there, or transitions or whatever. Probably that whole Olympia thing, I didn't remember exactly where that scene was. But other than that, let's go into episode 2. So, episode 2. We have Pilgrim, who is to be waking up from this rooftop to meet a guy, a security guard named Albert, and they are to just kind of talk about old times, how the security guard used to see like Diamond and Retro Girl all the time hanging out together. And so Diamond is to thank Albert for everything that he's ever done. And Albert's like, well, hey, anytime you want to hang up here, you go on and you do that. So Walker is to thank this guy and is to head out. So Walker is to have somehow or another lost his diamond tie. So Walker is now having to forcibly figure out how to retie his tie and get another set of clothes on as he's trying to get ready for work, which he is obviously late to. Pilgrim is to go on with a number of police officers to go after Zerotron X, who is to have this ability of shooting light bolts out of his eyes. So the Power Division is to go after this guy, and it seems like he's getting a hot dog somewhere. So they're trying to figure out a way how to kind of get him. And so they're putting on these brass knuckles. They're putting on a number of items, and they're saying like, yeah, once you are to hit Zerotron X, like just continue to hit him. And so it's like, okay, man, this is kind of brutal. So we have these police officers going on and are trying to get this guy before he unleashes his power. So they at some point are to go on and take him down to the ground, and we have it to where Zerotron X is to release his power, and Pilgrim is to use this kind of metal device to put it into his eyes, and she becomes the lightning rod, and so, like, rookie mistake. And Walker will eventually tell her that later. So After that is to all be done and squared away, and Cutter is kind of ticked off at Pilgrim for not having Walker there. I guess Walker is their safety net. So Pilgrim is to go and meet up with Walker, and she is to have a cup of coffee, and Walker's like, oh, like, thanks. And Pilgrim's like, I'm not your personal assistant. No. And it's kind of funny because later on, Walker is to have that same sentiment with them clinging to beers, and he's like, hey, I'm not your personal assistant, so, like, don't get used to this. They have to go and redo the same joke. So Walker and Pilgrim. So Pilgrim is to relay to Walker uh, everything that had happened with one another, and so Pilgrim is now asking Walker. It's like, well, hey, like, shouldn't we be going now to Retro Girl's place to pick this girl up? And Walker's like, well, yeah, like, I have already called her and kind of like let her know that I'm coming, because Walker was to call Retro Girl and was to tell her that it's like, well, hey, like, this is like official business and I need this girl and so on and so. And then he goes on and has to like do this other message where he's like reconfirming all. So like it's kind of funny because again, Retro Girl does the same exact thing. So Callista is to wake up like by this couch and is to just kind of make her way through Retro Girl's place to eventually find Retro Girl, who is by this tub. So we have it, of course, where Callista and Retro Girl are talking about Retro Girl's past, where, of course, and this isn't like perfectly in sync with the episode, but it is what it is. Like, I'm just going to go on and just kind of cover certain events within this episode, and hopefully that covers everything. So Callista is talking to Retro Girl about her past, and that Callista was to watch this television show that and talk about Retro Girl and so on and so forth. So Callista is to like a certain kind of like suit that Retro Girl is to wear, and conveniently when Callista is to at some point possibly get her powers, let's just say, Callista is to don that same outfit. So the reasoning for Retro Girl only wearing that suit once is because when she was to try to take down some villain, she had a wardrobe malfunction, which is to lead eventually to her villain calling her Super Tits. So we go on, and Callista's like, well, like, it's kind of fun, like, between both of us kind of catching up, and Retro Girl's like, this isn't catching up. Like, we're not, like, old friends. Because Retro Girl was just trying to figure out what the heck was going on between both Walker and Callista, and considering Callista was wearing the similar gear of what Retro Girl was doing, like, she was kind of confused if, like, Callista was in danger, doing some roleplay thing, and that, like, things got out of hand. And Callista's like, no, because Retro Girl would have said, you probably would have been in the hospital, I would have just dumped you off. So we have it at one point where Walker and Pilgrim are to eventually meet up with Retro Girl and are to kind of talk to her about what had all happened. And so Retro Girl, who is to want to, of course, try to go on and give up this girl, come to find out, we have Callista, who is to hide within this vehicle, and so, like, they don't know where exactly she went to. So Walker is to come to find out that Johnny Royale is to come to his precinct, his Powers Division precinct, and fill out paperwork so he can be registered as a powered individual. And so Walker is to see Johnny, and like Walker is just seeing red, seeing that he wants to go on and just take down Johnny. And while that's happening, we of course have Simons, who is videotaping this police brutality. And Simons is to kind of run out of Simons is to run out of the building and scramble out of there. And so Walker is to get like released from Johnny's Royale's like hold and sorts. And so Johnny is to scramble out of there. So come to find out, Johnny was to do this whole news report of him mentioning that he's like, well, hey, like, I don't want to be in the shadows anymore. I want to go on and kind of come back and like new lease on life and everything like that. I want a wife and kids and white pick events and all of this and that. So Johnny's mentioning that he was going to register on that day or the day after. And so the news is to release this exclusive footage of Johnny getting harassed by Diamond or by Walker. And so we have Walker who's just ticked off about that footage getting out there. So now that Johnny has gone on and come out of the shadows, and we have Johnny that is consistently getting this dealer who is to put together Sway. And so Johnny is going on and using his power to make these samples, these red samples, into these pills for them to go on and continue to sell Sway. And come to find out, Johnny is actually draining Wolf of blood so he can go on and make this drug consistently. When they keep talking about the dealer who is to give them the stuff, that is Wolf. So Johnny is to talk to Simon, and Simon is getting very uneasy about everything that Johnny is to go on and do. And so Simons is to talk to one of his other Simons, and is to mention him like, well, hey, like, you know me better than anyone else, right? He's like, well, yeah. Like, like I just have this uneasy kind of feeling going on. So we go on into the second episode, and I'm trying to figure out if there's anything unique enough about this second episode. So we have Johnny at one point re-meeting up with Callista, and so Johnny and Callista are to go on to this club, and I'm trying to, like, every once in a while I'll just get this like gap of this like memory where I'm just like, what happens here? So we have Johnny at this club who is kind of just showing off Callista, and then Johnny is to take Callista to his secret hideaway place, and we have Johnny who is wanting to trust Callista, and Johnny is mentioning that, hey, like, I'm gonna give you a confession that I was to go on and kill somebody, and like, I'm gonna give you my like this thing for you to trust me. And Callista just takes this note and rips it up, And Johnny's like, oh, okay, so I can trust this girl now. So Johnny takes Callista back to the party, and so everything seems to be going on smoothly. So I'm trying to think if there's anything left. Oh, we have Crispin, who is to go on and play video games. And so it seems that he's playing as Diamond on this Powers version of video game. So Crispin all of a sudden is to meet this girl who's to be called Chronic Chick or Chaotic Chick. And so Crispin is to meet up with this girl and in the chat of things, and uh, Crispin, of course, is asking Chaotic Chick if there's a way for them to fight off Iron Impact, and Chaotic Chick is like, well, because he killed a guy recently, they took that out of the game, and so we have Crispin who is mentioning how inaccurate this game is, and how there should be a number of times where there should be like dead bodies or any number of things when someone is to go on and do a number of things here. So Chaotic Chick is to figure out some loophole or some kind of way for them to fight Iron Impact, because I guess she may have like some kind of code or DLC or something that bizarrely Crispin doesn't have. So all of a sudden Crispin is starting to draw out this Chaotic Chick's design, and so Candace is to go on and see Crispin and be like, well, hey, like it's kind of interesting that you're going on and finally drawing again. And Crispin's like, well, yeah, like I guess. And so Candace leaves, and of course the design is from Chaotic Chick. He's kind of designing her some kind of logo of sorts. So yes, with that said, I feel like most of this episode in my brain feels covered. But then again, what do I know? Like, I feel like I'm leaving something gigantic out. So more than likely I might need bleh. More than likely, probably the next time that I review Powers, I might have to rebuttal or something like that, because I feel like I probably had forgotten some kind of something. Um, but I think I might have also just gotten the gist of most of these episodes, so I think I feel like fine about it. Um, yeah, so yeah, like I think that's it. I think that's most of it. So with that said, let me know in the comments below if there's something that I forgot about, because I'm sure there's a billion things that I did forget about. Uh, a lot of it is probably usually dialogue, because I usually forget a lot of dialogue, but at the end of the day, that's why rebuttals are a thing, exist, and whichever. Uh, yeah, so I think I'm going to get out of here. I'm very unsure. I think by the time that I stop this, I'll be like, hey, here's 30 things that I forgot. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. If this video is to eventually get views, then maybe I'll go through and talk about Powers more. This was probably just one of those where I just needed to just kind of go on and talk about this, or just to watch it. So whatever happens afterwards is whatever happens afterwards. If it doesn't get a single view, then I'll just go through and just do some other show, or something else. So with that said, goodbye everybody. Bye everybody. Of course, as per usual, because there's so much to have to remember. There was also the moment where Walker was to have gotten that back message from Retro Girl, like having all those messages that he was to get from her about Retro Girl wanting to ask about the girl and ask about catching the girl and like let her know. And so Walker is to go on and just kind of have this phone and just like, ugh. So to eventually he again goes outside and is to want to just kind of just feel like he can just have some kind of moment of just wanting to remember what it was like again to have powers. We had the moment where both Pilgrim and Walker were sharing a beer together and having them just kind of like talk about their day. And Walker, of course, is to give Pilgrim a beer and so on and so forth. And like the main like part of this was to just kind of remind Walker that he doesn't have superpowers. And Walker's like, yeah, I know, like I can't fly anymore. um and so like because like all the aftermath of like Pilgrim really finding out what really happened between Retro Girl and Walker and Callista. And so like now Pilgrim's like, oh my god, like you tried to go on and you tried to fly. And he's like, well, yeah, but I realized I couldn't do it. So yeah. So I think that was like the gist of the conversation. And also Walker was to find out what Pilgrim did, which was a rookie mistake, and that she should not have gone on and tried to do what she did. And so Walker is to go on and like step by step kind of guide uh, Pilgrim in what she should have like for the next time around for that to possibly have happened. What is the next step to go on and do? So I think that covers like anything in any little gaps of which that I possibly had forgotten about. Uh, and hopefully I think that's it. I know I didn't really I still couldn't remember much of the whole club thing and the Johnny and Callista kind of moment when Callista is to go back to that same spot that Johnny and Callista were to have met before. But other than that, I think everything else is covered. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.